16 families from New Jersey, 1 year of moves across the Delaware River, and a list of surprises that would have cost them thousands if they hadn't seen them coming. I'm Jim Stevenson, a realtor here in the Philadelphia suburbs, and if you're thinking about leaving New Jersey for Pennsylvania, this is the playbook that keeps you from losing money in the first 10 days. Look, I get it. You're probably watching this because someone told you Pennsylvania has lower taxes. Maybe you ran the numbers on Zillow and saw houses that actually seemed affordable. But here's what those Zillow searches don't tell you. You can lose $7,000 to $10,000 in the first 10 days of a Pennsylvania deal and not even realize what happened. That's not a rounding error. That's, do we still have enough cash to furnish the house money? Let me walk you through the exact surprises we hit with real families and how we got ahead of them so you don't have to learn the hard way. The biggest shock for most New Jersey buyers comes in the first week. I had a family moving from Princeton. They just, put their kids' school stuff in storage and were ready to go. We found a colonial in Central Bucks, and before we even wrote the offer, I pulled up the deposit timeline on my laptop and turned the screen toward them. In Pennsylvania, you need to wire the full earnest money deposit within 5 days of acceptance or whatever timeline you decide, not $1,000 to hold it, the whole thing. The husband looked at me and said, our down payment is sitting in a Schwab account. That takes a week to move. If I hadn't flagged it, they would have missed the deadline and lost the house. In New Jersey, you're trained to think that signing a contract is just the start of the conversation. You put down a token check, your attorney reviews it, and you have a few days to change your mind. Pennsylvania doesn't work that way. Once both parties sign, you're in the game. You're legally bound the second the ink is dry. No 3-day attorney review, no automatic escape hatch. So here's what that means for you. Your protection is the way your offer is written, which contingencies you choose and how fast you move on due diligence the second you're under contract. So here's what I tell every New Jersey buyer now. Before you even start looking at houses in Pennsylvania, make sure, maybe 5 to 10% of your purchase budget is liquid and ready to wire within 48 hours. Not next week, not after you sell some stock, now. This is exactly the kind of stuff I map out with buyers before we even start touring, because once you're under contract, the clock doesn't wait. Now let's talk about the inspection surprise. This is where New Jersey buyers lose deals if nobody warns them. I had a family from Jersey City who found a home in Montgomery County. The inspection came back with about 20 items, old water heater, some electrical updates needed, a few cosmetic issues. Their instinct was to send a repair request for pretty much everything, just like they would back in New Jersey. I told them that's not how it works here. Pennsylvania sellers, especially in this market, are not obligated to fix anything beyond what's negotiated up front. The culture is much more as is. If you come in asking for every outlet cover and sticky door, you can turn a cooperative seller into someone who says, take it or leave it. So we focused on the big stuff. The water heater that was on the last legs and a radon reading that came back at a level of 6.2, above the EPA action level. We asked for those 2 items and a small credit for the electrical work. Seller agreed, they closed on their home, and they told me afterward that if they'd sent that original 20-item list, probably would have lost the house over a $200 repair. So what do you focus on when you're negotiating in Pennsylvania? Safety and structural, radon, septic, foundation, roof. Let the cosmetic stuff go. You can paint a wall yourself. You can't fix a foundation for cheap. Speaking of radon, this is something I prep every New Jersey buyer for before we even start looking at houses. About 40% of Pennsylvania homes test above the EPA action level of 4.0 for radon. It's the geology. We're sitting on the Redding Prong Formation, which has naturally occurring uranium. Sounds scary. But here's the thing, radon mitigation is routine. A contractor installs a pipe and fan system under the slab, it vents the gas outside. The cost is usually around $1,500, and most sellers will either install the system or give you a credit for it. I had a family from Cherry Hill. I'd never dealt with radon in their lives. Their last test came back at 5.8, and they asked if they should walk away. Because I'd already explained how common this is, they weren't panicked. They got the system installed before closing. Post-mitigation test came back at 0.8. Problem solved. They've been in the house for 8 months and haven't thought about radon once. So if you see a house with a radon system already installed, don't run. That's actually a good sign. Now here's a risk that's specific to the Pennsylvania suburbs. It can cost you 6 figures if you miss it. Stucco. If you're looking at homes in the $700,000 to $900,000 range in Chester, Montgomery, or Bucks County, you're going to see a lot of colonials built between 1990 and 2005. Classic stucco exteriors, great neighborhoods. Here's the problem. During that building boom, builders were rushing to keep up with demand. They used synthetic stucco or traditional stucco over wood frames, but cut corners on moisture barriers and flashing. What that means is there's no drainage plane behind the walls. So when water gets in through window joints or cracks, it has nowhere to go. It just sits there against the sheathing and rots the framing from the inside out. A standard home inspection won't catch this. You need a specialized stucco inspection where they drill small holes and test the moisture, content behind the walls. And if you want help figuring out which inspections to order for your specific situation, I put together a free Philadelphia Suburbs relocation guide that walks through all of it. Links in the description or scan the QR code on screen. And if you want to talk through your short list of towns and what to watch for, book a call using the link below. Now back to that stucco story. I had a family looking at a colonial in Lower Makefield. The wife kept saying, she wanted to be in before their daughter started kindergarten in the fall. The seller swore the stucco was fine. They insisted on the testing anyway, which was smart. The moisture readings came back elevated in multiple areas. The walls were basically wet sponges. The remediation estimate, over $100,000. Because we had the stucco contingency in the contract, they walked away with their deposit. If they had skipped that inspection to win a bidding war, they would have bought a six-figure problem. The rule is simple. If the home was built between 1990 and around 2005 and it has stucco, you definitely test for it, no exceptions. Now let's talk about the money surprise I mentioned at the top. The $7,000 to $10,000 that catches New Jersey buyers off guard. In New Jersey, the seller typically pays the transfer tax. You show up to closing, bring your down payment and closing costs, and you're done. In Pennsylvania, the state charges a 2% transfer tax, and the custom usually is to split it 50-50 between buyer and seller. That means you're paying 1% of the purchase price in cash at closing. On a $750,000 house, that's $7,500. Some towns are actually even higher. Radnor Township adds a local surcharge. Parts of Delaware County can push the total to 3%. I walk through this with buyers before we even start looking because I've heard stories of buyers who budgeted based on their New Jersey experience and showed up to the closing table $8,000 short. And that's a stressful 24 hours nobody needs. So when we're budgeting for a Pennsylvania purchase, add 1% of the purchase price to your closing costs. That's cash on top of your down payment. Now here's the other tax surprise that hit almost every one of my 16 families, the 1% local wage tax. You probably know that Pennsylvania has a flat state income tax at 3.07%. That sounds great coming from New Jersey, where high earners can pay up to 10.75%. But Pennsylvania municipalities also charge an earned income tax, typically 1% of your wages. Half goes to the township, half goes to the school district. You're probably thinking the savings are still huge, and they can be, but let's run the actual numbers. A household making $150,000, in New Jersey, you might pay around $7,500 in state income tax, depending on your deductions. In PA, you'll pay about $4,600 in state income tax, plus another $1,500 in local earned income tax. That's $6,100 total. Still a savings, but not the windfall that people expect. And one thing I tell every buyer, update your payroll immediately. I had a family working remotely for a New Jersey employer. Because we talked about this up front, they got their withholding switched right away. But I've seen buyers forget and their payroll keeps withholding New Jersey taxes for months. Then you're filing amended returns to sort it out. And if you're working in Philadelphia, there's another layer. The city wage tax for non-residents is about 3.44% on top of everything else. All right, let's talk about township requirements. This is something I researched before we even write an offer. Every municipality in Pennsylvania is its own little, kingdom with its own rules. Not a footnote, a line item. I had a family buying in a borough that required a use and occupancy inspection before the deed could transfer. The township inspector flagged that the house numbers weren't 4 inches tall, a handrail was missing on the basement stairs, and the sewer lateral needed a video inspection. The house numbers and handrail cost maybe $150 total. The sewer lateral, that's where, it really got interesting. The camera found tree root infiltration and a cracked pipe, and the estimate was about $4,800. Because I knew this township required lateral inspections, we had already written into the contract that the seller was responsible for township repairs. The seller fixed it. But I've seen deals where buyers take on these repairs to look competitive, and then they get hit with a $5,000, bill right before closing. And that's not cheap. And if you've never heard of a dye test, you're not alone. Some PA townships are cracking down on stormwater illegally connected to the sanitary sewer. A plumber runs dye through your downspouts and drains, and if it shows up where it shouldn't, the property fails. Now you've got to repair before the sale even closes. So before you make an offer on any property, find out what the township requires for resale. Some townships just check for smoke detectors, others send an inspector through the whole house. Know what you're walking into. One more thing that catches New Jersey families off guard. Your mailing address does not guarantee your school district. In Bucks and Montgomery County, district boundaries can cut right through what feels like the same town. A house could have a mailing address of one town, but belong to a completely different school district. I'd rather disappoint you on day one than watch you regret it after settlement. So we verified the school district for the exact property address before you fall in love with any house. Now let me give you a good news story. I had a family from Bergen County who found a home in Bucks County that was almost identical to what they had in New Jersey. Similar square footage, similar lot size, similar schools, similar commute. In New Jersey, they were paying $16,000 a year in property taxes. In Bucks County, their tax bill is $6,800. That's over $9,000 a year in savings. Their car insurance dropped by almost $1,100 annually. Add it all up, and they're putting about $800 more into savings every single month compared to what they were spending in Jersey. That's a big difference. And the PA seller's disclosure form was more detailed than anything they'd seen in New Jersey. The PA disclosure law requires sellers to fill out a document covering everything from roof leaks to basement water to HVAC issues, usually 10 plus pages. Does that mean you skip the inspection? Absolutely not. Sellers disclose what they know, not what they don't, but at least it gives you a better starting point. A few more rapid fire differences. PA only issues one license plate, no front bracket needed. Pump your own gas here. Wine and liquor are sold at state-run stores, not grocery stores. Annual car inspections are mandatory. Safety and emissions, unlike New Jersey, which only does emissions every 2 years. And if you're buying a condo or townhouse with an HOA, PA law gives you a 5-day cancellation window after you receive the HOA documents. You can walk away for any reason during those 5 days, deposit returned. I had a family who used those 5 days, really dug into the financials and found a potential special assessment coming. We exercised the window, got them out of the deal, no questions asked. Definitely worth it. Now you understand the playbook for moving from New Jersey to PA. You know about the $7,000 to $10,000 that catches people at closing, the contract rules, the inspection culture, the township surprises, but here's what most people don't realize next. The town you choose changes everything. The town with the top schools might have a commute that quietly grinds you down. The town with the walkable downtown might have a tax bill that's about to spike. I scored the top suburbs across schools, safety, taxes, and commute to find where families actually win. Watch this video next because I'll show you exactly which towns made the list and what trade-off you're agreeing to in each one. Thanks for watching.